you thinking about planting your own caladium bulbs, but you're not quite sure how to do it?
Yeah, well, we're going to help you plant your caladium bulbs step by step today.
Hi there, we're Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden. But before we get to the planting, did you know that there are many different caladium colors to choose from, and they all have beautiful heart-shaped leaves? They're also known as angel wings.
Yeah, and caladiums can be grown in a lot of different regions as indoor or outdoor plants, but you only want to set them outdoors once your outside temperatures have consistently gotten to 60 degrees or above. Now, caladiums can be grown as indoor plants year-round. Before we show you how to plant your caladium bulbs, there's a couple things we think you should know about. First off, these bulbs are native to Central and South America. They're considered a tender perennial, and they're hardy in zones 8 through 11. There's also two different kinds of caladiums to know about. There's strap leaf and fancy leaf. Fancy leaf happens to be the heart-shaped leaves with all the different intricate patterns and shades. If you live in a colder or cooler climate, you need to consider either growing caladiums as an annual or dig them up in the fall to then store them over the colder times of year to then replant them the next year. Caladiums are really fun to grow in your garden because they have a mounding, clumping form, and they come in a lot of different shades of colors and variations of those colors, including white, pink, red, and green. Caladiums can be a real versatile plant in your garden because they prefer partial shade and they need well-draining, nutrient-rich soil. So if you have any poor soils, you can always just add a little compost to it and they'll grow fine. Also, when growing caladiums in your garden, make sure to place them in a spot where there's little to no wind because any heavy winds can actually break the stems and those leaves. Now, the caladium bulbs we're going to show you how to plant today are from the Sun Tolerant Collection from Eden Brothers. And they're made up of a mix of White Queen, Red Flash, Comic Delight, Rosebud, and Aaron. Now, these bulbs will grow on average from 12 to 18 inches tall and out, and as part of their name, Sun Tolerant Collection, they will take full sun. So in your garden, if you don't have a partial shade or partial sun location, you can plant them in a full sun location and that'll be fine. These caladium bulbs will produce colorful foliage starting in the summer to late summer all the way into the fall until the first frost. This is a really fun collection to grow because they're easy to grow and maintain, and they will need consistent watering to keep consistent moisture around those bulbs and its roots. But they are susceptible to a lot of different funguses and root rots, so make sure not to overwater them and keep track of your watering. Caladiums in general are great for container gardens, border plantings, and they can add a lot of different foliage to those spaces where you don't have anything growing in your garden. They're deer resistant and rabbit resistant, but watch out for aphids and caterpillars.
So before planting your caladium bulbs, you have options to plant them indoors or outdoors depending on your needs. If you're going to plant them outdoors directly in the ground, you need to make sure that the nighttime temperatures are consistently above 60 or warmer. Then they'll be ready to plant outside. If you want to get a jump start on the season and get them planted early indoors, which is a great option, you need to be mindful of your last spring frost date and plant them indoors about 6 weeks before that date. Also, your soil temperature needs to be pre-warmed to between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And the last thing to consider for indoor planting is your nighttime temperatures need to be consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
When your bulbs first arrive, make sure to take them out of their box and their packaging and inspect each one to see if there's any damage or if anything's wrong with your bulbs. You just want to give them a little squeeze, just look them over, make sure there's no discoloration or anything that seems out of the ordinary on them. These look to be great and nice and healthy. Caladium bulbs can be a little confusing when trying to figure out the correct orientation to plant them. You can see there's just a bunch of nodules in this odd shape of a bulb. Now, we're lucky enough to see an actual growing point right here where the tip is going to be, and here's another one. So when we plant this, we'll make sure that these growing points are planted up, are oriented up, and then this side will be pointed down in the hole. If you don't know which side or can't determine what is up or down on these bulbs, plant them in the orientation of how you think it needs to be set on its side, like I'm doing right here. Now we need to talk to you about spacing and planting depth. You want to plant each one of your caladium bulbs 2 inches below the soil surface. So that means the very top of your bulb needs to be below the soil surface 2 inches. So depending on how much space you have in your garden to plant these, you can go a minimum of 6 inches or a maximum or more of 12 inches, depending on the needs in your garden and what look you're looking for.
All right, let's get to planting these bulbs. The first step is actually to break up your soil and loosen it up, whether you're planting in a container or a ground bed. Next, grab your bulbs and start spacing them around the area you intend to plant them in. Next, dig your planting hole at 2 inches deep for each bulb. If you need to, make sure to add some bone meal or other beneficial organic growing boosters before placing the bulbs in each hole to get them established faster. Lightly water over the top of the soil to help with rooting and to trigger growth. Keep the soil consistently moist, especially after they've sprouted up over the surface, but not sopping or boggy.
Once your bulbs emerge from the soil, make sure to consistently water them in the weeks and months ahead. You don't want to let the soil dry out too much, but you can let the first 1 to 2 inches of soil dry out before watering. You can add a little mulch over the soil to not only keep the weeds down, but to hold the moisture in the soil for longer so it's more readily available for your caladiums to take up and stay hydrated. Be sure to watch for pests like caterpillars and aphids and any fungal diseases that could develop on the stems or the leaves. If you see any dead or withering leaves, make sure to remove those. You can fertilize your caladium bulbs every month with a general purpose fertilizer. If you're growing them inside, you can use a liquid fertilizer once a week or so. Most importantly, if you're growing your caladium bulbs in a container like we are or below zone 7, you'll need to dig your caladium bulbs up before any consistent frost sets in the early to late fall. Now, if you need more bulb or flower planting or growing tips, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
And we hope this video was really helpful for you in planting your own caladium bulbs. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.